Good morning, everybody. If you want to follow along today, we will be starting in the 20th chapter of the book of Proverbs. And this chapter continues the theme from the previous few chapters of just living wisely, just again avoiding some of the foolishness of society, and certainly foolishness is not hard to find, and it's easy to get into. And as we look here, again, he's going to give some specific examples of some things that he considers to be foolish. We're going to look at four this morning that Solomon specifically mentions. And again, but as he gives us these four specific things, they're under, again, this general heading of just simply not being foolish, of living wisely. And the first one is one that we're going to look at, and I'm not going to be able this morning to go completely into all the detail that I would like, but it is something very important to me in my belief system. Verse 1, wine is a mocker, strong drink is raging, and whosoever is deceived thereby is not wise. I understand that we live in a society that many, even in the church, have a lot of varying acceptance levels of strong drink, um, from zero, or the teetotalers, abstinence, as that group is often called, to the moderate or social drinkers, to some who see no harm whatsoever. Um, what and I will and I'm going to tell you what I see taught in the Bible. Again, we can debate, and again, I don't have the time, and it's not my purpose this morning. But I do feel like the Bible teaches us that for a various number of reasons, that we are to abstain from all alcoholic beverages. And I will tell you one of the reasons for that, and I know people come back and they point to Jesus turning the water into wine and wine being mentioned in the Bible. Um, and for one of the simplest things to point out is we're comparing apples and oranges. Um, and even then, strong drink was disapproved of by Scripture. But the alcohol that is consumed today, the distillery process came along after Jesus' time, and so the alcohol today is so much stronger than anything that the biblical writers were talking about. We've all seen the destruction that alcohol does, and that's what Solomon is actually talking about here again. To begin with, is the danger, the destruction that wine comes from, or comes from drinking. And he describes here again this. He says it's a mocker, and it's raging. And the other word for that, wine is a mocker. The word raging, it is a brawler. And Mocker's a word that Proverbs uses often to describe someone who makes fun of what is right. Brawlers or raging are those who cause trouble. And Solomon is simply saying the influence of alcohol is not good. It leads to destruction. And I think one of the real problems for me with alcohol is, for every person who says I can drink one and go home, there's, a whole group more who can't drink just one, and you never know uh, who that is. And so he warns us against the danger of the addictive, or personality altering, life changing effects of alcohol. And I said I don't have time to completely dig into that. May do that at another time, and it'll take a whole series of time to do that. But don't have time this morning. But the fear of a king is as the roaring of a lion. Whoso provoketh him to anger sinneth against his own soul. So the second thing that he talks about is that don't um, make somebody in authority angry. It always amazes me sometimes to see some of these videos you see where people want to get in an argument and a brawl with a police officer on the side of the road. In my mind, that's crazy. For one thing, he pushes a button on the radio and he's got 20 or 30 of his best friends um, coming along to help him. Second of all, you're not going to win. Even even if you win the fight, you will lose the war because you're going to end up in court. You're going to end up in jail. And so he says, when we go against the leader who has the ability and who has the power to punish, uh, he says that's just a foolish way to live our life. It's an honor for a man to cease from strife, but every fool will be meddling. Um, he says just avoid arguing. As much as humanly possible. I don't guess it's completely possible to avoid all disagreements, but he's certainly saying would be that you're foolish to start it. You're foolish to start the argument. You hear people sometimes saying so and so won the argument. Well, did they? I mean, have we ever really truly won an argument? And generally, if you do win an argument, you lose a friend. And so, have you ever really won an argument? And then the fourth thing he warns against here is in verse 4 when he says, the sluggard will not plow by reason of the cold, therefore shall he beg in harvest and have nothing. He says the lazy man won't plow because he says it's too cold, and then he complains because he's hungry. Um, and if you don't do your work, he said, then you end up begging. Don't be lazy. And is the warning. And so it gives us in this section four real basic proverbs, real basic statements to live a peaceful, happy life. Avoid alcohol. And again, I said a while ago, I realize people have different opinions of that, and I'm not going to argue with you. I'll be glad to give you my opinions and my evidence for why I believe it the way I do. But in the end, you're grown. Um, you know, uh, he says, don't argue with those in authority. You're not going to win. Feel free if you want to challenge the police department, but you reap the consequences. Avoid arguing as much as you possibly can, and don't be lazy. I think probably most of us, if we could teach our children something, we'd like to teach them those four things and see them grow up to live by them. But if we're going to do that, then maybe we should be practicing them in our own life. You think about it and have a good day. We'll see you back here tomorrow morning.